Chris.
Hi.
I'm so glad to meet you here. Actually, a couple of months ago, I bought your book, so I have been expecting to meet you in UAC. As we know, your specialty in Hellenistic Astrology. So can you tell us something about the Hellenistic Astrology?
Sure. So yeah, I've been practicing Hellenistic Astrology. It took me 10 years to write my book, and during that time I've been practicing it. So it's the type of astrology that was practiced about 2,000 years ago in the Roman Empire.
Okay.
So it's the original type of Western astrology that uses planets and the signs of the zodiac and houses and the concept of aspects. And some parts of that tradition have been lost until recently when we recovered them through translations of ancient Greek texts.
Is tropical or sidereal?
It's tropical, although there's some sidereal components, so ideally you would want to use some elements from both, but it's primarily tropical.
So how do you think, is there any special between the modern Western astrology and the Hellenistic astrology?
Like, is there any way to reconcile them?
Or something special?
Something special in terms of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, it turns out that there was a lot of techniques that were lost that didn't survive in the modern astrology that still exist in Hellenistic astrology. So one of them is the concept of sect, which is the difference between day and night charts.
Okay, or can you give some short, brief example?
Of sect?
Yeah.
Sure. So one of the differences is that sect indicates that there's a difference between a person who was born during the day and a person who was born at night, and that Saturn will operate differently, for example, for people born during the day or people born at night.
Okay.
So one of the things that this results in is that for Saturn returns, people with day charts tend to have easier Saturn returns, whereas people with night charts tend to have more challenging Saturn returns.
Okay. And another question is, we know you all studied in Kepler College and used to be the president of AYA and as well as the research director in CGR. Can you talk about a little bit about that experience and to make you a professional astrologer?
Sure. So yeah, I found astrology when I was very young. I was only 15 years old, and I decided that that was what I wanted to do with my life. So I went to Kepler College straight out of high school, and then I studied the history and the philosophy and the techniques of different astrological traditions for a few years there. And then I went and studied at a translation project for ancient astrological texts for 2 years. And from there I wanted to get more experience with astrological organizations and helping to organize conferences and things like that. So I joined the Association for Young Astrologers, and they help astrologers to attend conferences like this one. And then I also started working with the NCGR as the research director, and I published the first research journal where we did a compilation of different papers on different approaches to astrology in order to show the different ways where they were very similar and the different ways where each tradition was very different. And out of that, I was hoping that there would emerge a synthesis of the different astrological traditions.
All right. And for the people who are really interested in the pretty antique, or they are want to learn the Hellenistic astrology, is there any prerequisite or the prerequisite they need, or how to get started?
Sure. So sometimes it's easier if you know a little bit of modern astrology, but not too much, because sometimes it's easier to learn Hellenistic astrology from the start. That way you don't have to unlearn any other concepts from modern astrology. So now that my book is out, I think people are finding it easier to get started in Hellenistic astrology, whereas before that you had to go back and read a translation of a text from the 2nd century, and it's a lot more difficult to read like an older text versus, a modern textbook on Hellenistic astrology.
All right. And I heard you and Lisa Shen have a monthly forecasting program. Can you describe that?
Yeah, we do a podcast together called the Auspicious Elections Podcast, and each month we find at least 4 auspicious electional charts, which are good dates and times in order to launch different types of ventures and undertakings, and in order to ensure that they're successful. So Lisa specializes in electional astrology, and that's the lecture she's giving at the conference. And yeah, we find at least 4, sometimes 5 charts each month, and we give them to people, and then they can adjust the chart to their location wherever they're at in the world.
All right. And the last question is, can you give me some astrological tips for the coming months? Yeah.
Sure, some tips for the coming months. I mean, the big thing this year is just there's so many planets going retrograde. So Mars is going retrograde, and Venus is going retrograde. But certainly the biggest shift is Uranus has just moved into Taurus. And for me, since I use whole sign houses, every time a planet moves into a new sign, it also moves into a new house. So I've been telling people to really focus on what house Uranus has moved into, just to get a sense of where there'll be some major changes in their life over the course of the next 7 years.
Yeah, all right. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. All right. Thank you.